Good afternoon. Welcome to the Deal Doctor Special Edition, Stump the Deal Doctors. So here we are, Eric Graham and myself, Don Phelan. We're going to do our best to field your questions live in our live stream today. And if you stump us, well, you win a hoodie. We got plenty, so we're not making any promises how well we'll do. We've never tried this before. It should be fun. Before I get started, though, before we get started, I want to make sure that everybody understands that we have now added a third Deal Doctor to our Deal Doctor phone number. It's 616-490-0902, and that is going to be answered by me, Eric, or our new guy, Paul Brooks, a welcome addition to our...
Paul.
Welcome, Paul. He's not here with us today because he's out in the audience watching, and he's going to probably be one of the folks throwing questions our way. In case any of the agents don't post up a question, we have some ringers out there who are going to throw some questions our way, but we really want them from the agents. So take a moment, drop a question in there, and we'll do our best to answer it. Eric,
all right.
Any thoughts?
I'm looking forward to it. Let's see what you have out there, and we're going to do our best.
Do you have the stream open?
I have Facebook open as well as the live stream questions, so we should, I hope we can grab them as they come in. So, who's going to be first?
That's right.
We already have a question.
All right.
We have a question.
All right.
Wow.
That was fast. That's great.
And the question is where?
What's our name?
Where are you pulling the question up?
I put it on the live stream questions down.
Oh, duh. There we go. Gabe Hatfield. At what point in a real estate transaction is a HUD consultant brought in? My very quick answer is whenever it says HUD. I think that...
We think alike. I was about to say the same darn thing.
Funny, we think alike a lot. But anytime that you get into a transaction that you've never been involved with before, like a HUD transaction, we encourage you to bring someone into the mix that is going to be able to guide you in that transaction. There are some agents out there who have a lot of experience with HUD, and we encourage you to connect with them and help them guide you through the process. Is that an answer to your question? How do we do?
I was going to say, the sooner the better. If you know you're going to be put in that position, definitely start doing your homework or research, or reach out to us here at the Deal Doctor line. We can help as well.
Terry Puffer. And off-market properties begin being sold by a wholesaler. What docs do we need in the loop for us to purchase on behalf of our clients?
So it's off market, so it's not going to be through the MLS.
Eric's going to answer that question.
Let me scroll that up real quick here. So you're acting as a buyer's agent. So definitely you're always going to need your buyer agency agreement. But before that, you need your agency disclosure, letting your client know that you're going to be acting as a buyer's agent. Then you're going to also want a buyer's agency agreement. That's the agreement that will hire you as the buyer's agent. There's a short form that we have at 5-Star, or you can use the longer form, the 3-pager. After that, of course, you would need your purchase agreement for this. Again, if this seller has a lead-based paint or a seller's disclosure, you'll need that. You'll also need an affiliated business arrangement disclosure if you're using Star Title. You also would like a wire fraud document. We encourage the pre-offer addendum and contingencies, a document that actually spells out all of the pinpoints within a purchase agreement. It's about a 5-page document that 5-Star has created. And then any other type of addendum that you might be considering. It's an off-market property. You also might deal with chattel agreements or personal property.
The other addition to that I would ask is, what is the arrangement in terms of being paid? Who's going to pay you? If your buyer is not able to pay you, you can fill out a buyer's agency contract, but that's not going to get you paid if the intention is that the seller is going to pay you. So if it's off market, there's no multiple listing co-brokerage agreement, you're going to need a compensation agreement to make sure. Well, there you go, Terry. I see, just see you posted. Yes, you're going to need a compensation agreement to establish who's going to pay Five Star Real Estate a commission.
And again, if you look at the actual buyer agency agreement, some of those documents will actually state that the seller will pay. But again, we'd have to go back to what the buyer agency agreement states.
That was a good one. Thanks, Terry. You get a sweatshirt. Gretchen Peters, excuse me. Are there any special docs needed for a buyer with Section 8? Not that I'm aware of, unless there is something within the Section 8 requirements for that buyer to qualify. But as far as the actual real estate transaction, I'm not aware of any that they would be required to have other than the buyer's agency contract, and the same thing with that Eric described in the last question. Hope that helped. If that's not the answer you need or the information you need.
If it's not the answer, call us, 616-490-0902.
Okay, Connor Pillmore. Connor has a FHA buyer. A home we looked at yesterday had wood siding with newer paint. However, the old paint was clearly painted over without being scraped off. Would this bring up concerns from the FHA lender? It really would be the area of the FHA appraiser. If the FHA appraiser went out and felt as though the work had not been done in a workmanlike manner, they could call for the work to be done properly. But that would be an appraiser call, and ultimately, yes, it would go back to the lender when the appraiser said, hey, that's not been done right, and it needs to be done properly prior to closing. Would you agree?
I was going to say, hey, if it's not peeling, it's good.
No, just no. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's try another one. Who we got? Nothing?
Yeah, I'm coming in right now.
Okay. But you know what? That's a pretty good one. I gotta give Connor a sweatshirt. Connor,
Yeah.
there's
There
your
you go.
sweatshirt. What is Tidewater? Ooh, that's a good one, but I got you. Tidewater is a process in VA financing where a buyer can challenge the appraisal if it comes in low.
Not the seller.
I was
Just
going to
the
say
buyer.
that.
Oh, okay.
I
kind of jumped the gun.
No, that's okay. You're good. So if the buyer has the right to challenge an appraisal if it comes in low under VA financing, it does not, however, permit the seller to challenge VA financing. So I hope that that's the answer to your question. But for example, a VA buyer could make an offer of $200,000. The appraisal comes in at $175,000, let's say. The buyer could challenge that appraisal and say, hey, wait a minute, I'm going to lose the house that I want to buy if I don't challenge that appraisal, and have everybody, seller's agent, buyer's agent, provide comps that could raise that appraisal up to $200,000. So that's the Tidewater process. Again, I hope that helps, but good question.
And there are specialists out there, some VA specialists that can also help buyers agents with that and navigate that process.
Quentin Foster, if I'm selling my own home, can I be a dual agent? No.
Let us repeat that. No.
No. You have to remain in the seller's position when you are selling any property of your own.
Yeah, because if you were to try to go into dual agency, a judge is going to say there's no way that you didn't have your best interest when you went to sell that home. So it's going to put you in an unfortunate situation and outcome. So you definitely want to avoid that.
Gabe, his follow-up question on Tidewater isn't Tidewater called by the VA appraiser? My understanding is that not necessarily. The VA appraiser sends out a notice to everyone that the appraisal is going to come in low. And before he issues or she issues the final appraisal, they can challenge the appraisal, but it's ultimately the buyer's choice. If the buyer says, hey, I don't want to challenge this appraisal, I want it to sell at $175,000, then they can simply move forward and that VA appraiser can finalize that $175,000 appraisal, but it's not his choice. He is only, or she is only allowing everyone to know that the appraisal looks like it's going to come in low, and if they want to challenge it, the time is now. Okay? Deb Lampani gets a sweatshirt. Is the holder of a life lease responsible for taxes paid non-homestead, or it cuts off there? But I think the question, Eric, that you can answer is a good one.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation. You would have a home, let's say I owned a home and my mom was going to live in this home. We may assign what's known as a life lease that my mother would be able to live on that property until she dies. Typically, the homeowner, such as myself, would be paying those taxes, and I'd be responsible for those taxes. Again, she would just be a tenant until she ended up dying in that home.
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
All right. Thanks, Deb. I hope that helps. And you're going to get a sweatshirt
Unless I need
anyway.
to call a friend.
Amanda.
Can I call a friend sometime?
Sure.
Okay, if I need help.
You can phone a friend.
I get one phone a friend.
She follows up. If I give a life estate to someone and I own another home, do I have to pay non-homestead tax, or does the person with the life lease be considered homesteaded?
Well, the life lease is a tenant. So unless we were to do some type of unique structuring of a potential trust, there's a possibility that we could have a homestead. But most likely in this case, I don't believe that that tenant would be able to actually claim a homestead. But what are your thoughts? Do I need to phone a friend?
Can I get back to you on that one? Anyway, no, I think that's probably right, but here's an excellent idea. Anytime you get involved in something like this, which is out of the scope of our expertise, and ours as well, it's really important that you get an attorney involved and a CPA, a trust attorney, whatever it is, to make sure that your seller is protected if they're going to give a life estate, or the owner is protected if you're going to give a life estate. This is a question I would probably refer the buyer or the seller to an attorney.
Yeah, and some people are always concerned about taxes. Let's just say the person's living in there and you don't want the taxes to uncap, meaning when you sell a property, taxes on the real estate uncap based on the current sales price. In a situation, if you have a trust and that trust maybe was a grandfather who's now selling to a grandchild, you can actually, before closing, you can have them sign a warranty deed to transfer title to the grandchild. Then the grandchild, if they're married, could actually sign another deed to their spouse to prevent uncapping. You do need an attorney for this because it gets a little tricky in those types of situations when it comes to uncapping. So just know one thing: if you're selling property from a grandparent to a sibling or to a grandchild, there are ways to prevent uncapping, and an attorney would be recommended.
Okay, Amanda Sanderson has buyer purchases a new home, just built, in a development with many surrounding homes with pools. Buyer goes to put in landscaping and township shows up and says, stop. Lo and behold, about 75% of the lot is wetlands. We go back to the agent, who is shocked. She goes to the builder, who is shocked. He goes to the developer, who is shocked. 2 surveys and no indication of wetlands. Had home been set back 10 feet further, it would have been in the wetlands. Who do you hold responsible? Buyer bought the home with big plans to put a pool in.
Well, I'm shocked.
No, it's everybody else who's shocked.
Oh,
You don't
okay.
get to be shocked.
I don't get to be shocked?
No, but I'd probably phone a friend if I were you.
Yeah, let me do that, because
I think that's probably a good idea in this one. This is kind of
stumped here. I think I can
complex.
try to answer this one.
So let's just have Eric. Really? Never mind.
Okay.
Amanda, you get a sweatshirt. Okay, that's fine. You gonna give out any sweatshirts? This is a tough one, because if the buyer had intentions about putting in a pool, then they probably should have done their due diligence to make sure that that was allowable. I mean, there's no indication here beforehand that anyone knew that this was, going to be, the pool would be positioned in wetlands. Well, that doesn't really matter if the intention of the buyer was to put the pool in. Then they probably should have done whatever due diligence was necessary, including talking to the township, to make sure that that property, that was something that was going to be allowed. So I don't know that I would cast blame and say who's at fault, but it's part of the overall process of disclosure and discovery. So, do you add to that or not?
Yeah, the only time I can think about that is if all the developers and builders, they botched everything. Maybe there's a possibility of getting a variance of sorts. I highly doubt it, with it being wetlands and working with Eagle to allow that. But boy, that seems to be a very unfortunate situation, because you're finding this out probably after the fact, and now kind of ruins the homeowner experience for that client. Attorney comes to mind.
I would probably encourage them to talk with an attorney about what their recourse is here. Gretchen Peters, if my buyer decides not to move forward after inspections because of vermiculite, asbestos insulation, does the seller at that point need to report that on the seller's disclosure? This is a question we get a lot. If there is a discovery in the process of inspections where a situation, a condition, material defect, whatever it is discovered by the inspector, does the seller then, is the seller required then to put it on the seller's disclosure? Well, the answer is we can't dictate what the seller puts on their disclosure. That is up to the seller. Now, if the listing agent knows that it is a not forthright, that they're withholding a material defect, that seller will ultimately be found out when they sell a property and somebody discovers that there was vermiculite insulation, and in this case, and sues them for non-disclosure. And then they found out that the inspection was done. Unfortunately, we're not responsible to we're not able to require that a seller discloses this information on their seller's disclosure form, but if it's a material defect, there's a good chance it will be discovered at some point. Would you have anything to add there?
And we always try to educate agents, disclose. And you actually, if you do find a material defect as a listing agent, you do now have a duty to disclose that information to any potential buyer who wants to buy that, even if the seller withholds.
Okay, Amanda has a follow-up. DEQ came out, said nope, everyone was shocked. Yeah, are you trying to go for 2 T-shirts here, Amanda? Is that the deal?
Yeah,
okay.
So DEQ, now known as Eagle, I'm sure they were shocked, because they don't even know what lands they control. And that would have come up from the master plan of the developer when they got permission from the township, and they would have had to work with Eagle. So I would think that there's a possibility that if we look deep into those records, that land maybe still could be built upon. But again, that would have to be an attorney. We would have to go and dive deep into the initial permit and applications that the developer had approved or got approval from Eagle. And it's going to be costly, because the attorney's going to have to dig a little bit deeper. And again, outside the scope of what we do, but what an unfortunate situation for a buyer.
Okay, what do we got? We got another one? Okay. What's that?
There's a new one.
Okay, here comes a new one. Thanks, Amanda. Okay, you got another sweatshirt. Amanda's got 2 sweatshirts today. 2 trains are going in opposite directions with 10 monkeys in the trains. Train A has an elephant and train B a hippo. Each train is going the same mile per hour. Which train arrives first? And the answer is yes. Thank you.
Neither of them, because they're going in opposite directions. They never arrive.
He's good. I gotta get it. You get a sweatshirt.
Well,
I think
do I?
you
All
should
right.
get a sweatshirt. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like the hippo.
Yeah, the hippo. All right. Who else is out there? How about some of our broker support team? You got some questions? Oh, Tracy, right on schedule. Boy, what a cue. One of my favorites. What is a Caver's error? CAIVRS. This stumped everyone on an entire transaction I had a few years ago. Well, I have to confess that Tracy gave me a heads up on this one because I didn't know what a Caver's error was either. But if you go, if you're going to attempt to get a mortgage or sell a property, the title company is going to probably run a Caver's search, which is a computer database operated by HUD, and it tells everyone what you have, if you have a federal loan of any kind, whether it's a federally backed student loan or taxes owed to the IRS or a lien against the property, all of those things will trigger a Caver's report, which will identify that a borrower owes the IRS money or has student loan debt out there, or a seller has to clear up a IRS lien, for example, before they can close on a property. So, great question. Thanks, Tracy. And by the way, thank you for giving me a heads up on that one. But
we'll give you a sweatshirt
we'll
anyway.
give you a sweatshirt anyway. We're here to give away sweatshirts, really. That's really the point. Okay, Kim. I have a listing that was built in 1992. Do I need to fill out a lead-based paint disclosure? Can we answer this one together? 1, 2, 3. No.
It's
Thank you very
exempt,
much.
but there's always a but. I guess we'd have to look back into the purchase agreements or buy-sell agreements because some of them actually will mention that they still want to have the lead-based paint disclosure included, but there's a section at the very top that says section 1 that if the home is built after 1978, you fill this out and you sign it and you can attach it. But in reality, we like exempt is exempt, but again, we have to refer back to the purchase agreement language.
Well, and the other thing is that that form that Eric is talking about, I think we've all seen it, has the little thing at the top that says that it was built in 78 or later. The seller is not required to fill that out. It's very simple that exempt is exempt. They're not required to fill it out. However, you will run into a lot of other brokers that think it is, and they will demand it, and their mortgage lenders will demand it, and so on. And so maybe another agent is sitting there to get paid by their broker for a deal, and they go, well, we need that in order for me to get paid. Well, you know, the question is it easier to fill that out and agree to that, or do you want to make an issue of it? You know,
Simple. John Smith. Here you go.
I don't know him. I don't know him at all. I got nothing. Okay, so anyway, that's the answer to that question. Connor Pillmore, if 5 Star holds the EMD on a PA, can I still use a different title company than Star Title? Do all title companies have escrow holding agreements? Well, first of all, if you're going to have 5 Star holding the EMD, the title company that you use doesn't matter. It's 5 Star would be holding the EMD, not Star Title. Now, if you get into a situation where the parties want for a title company to hold it and you're using Star Title, or whatever title company you're using, should be holding that in their trust account. We always encourage that if you're working with buyers, that you have 5-star real estate, hold the EMD, because it gives us some power in the negotiations if there's something that happens, that there's a disagreement on the disbursement of those funds. Do all title companies have escrow holding agreements? Not necessarily. So you want to make sure that you're working with a title company that does have escrow holding agreements if you're going to have the EMD held by the title company. But again, we encourage you to have it held by 5-star real estate. Kim Anderson, why is the 2-step process important to terminate a sale based on inspections?
Well, a 2-step process because there are 2 different issues here. One, you're dealing with a termination notice from one party to the other, and sometimes these terminations are a unilateral termination, meaning that a buyer, let's say during inspections, has the right to terminate. They don't need permission from the seller to terminate. If they're within the, let's say, the 10-day window within the language, they can send over a notice of termination that will then terminate the purchase agreement. And then the second issue is, how do you resolve the EMD? Because just because you terminate lawfully, a seller might decide, well, I don't like this and I'm going to dispute the EMD. It makes it a clean transaction when we terminate first with a separate transaction, and then we can fight over the EMD, however the chips will fall on that one.
Yeah, very often a seller may not want to, or a buyer may not want to sign the mutual release, which also includes a hold harmless agreement. So they may not be prepared to simply wash their hands of any opportunity to go after the other party later. So when you send over that as the sole document to terminate a mutual a transaction, they may move past the inspection window without the buyer actually terminating the agreement, because the mutual release requires all signatures. The unilateral right can be done on an addendum, as Eric just said, and terminate that contract and then figure out who gets the money. Doug Hale asks, the lender runs that report, correct? And if you're talking about the Cavers report, yes, very often if you're dealing with a buyer who has a federal backed student loan or a lien or something like that, they're going to identify how much those liens might be, and that will impact whether or not the buyer will be able to get the mortgage. But they also, a title company can show up on title work as well, because very often a seller may have a Cavers report that shows that they have a lien on their property, and they can't clear that up and close until that's been resolved. Okay. We got any new ones? We do. Okay. Okay. Boy, you're getting tough. Now we're getting some good ones. What is the #1 cause of real estate related lawsuits, pro standards actions, and LARA complaints?
#1 cause of real estate related lawsuits.
Blanks in contracts. Boom.
Negligence.
No, actually, the real answer is blanks in contracts. If you don't put a date, a starting date, for example, an effective date for a buyer's agency contract, if you forget to leave that, to put that in, and you leave that out, that's an unenforceable contract, because there's no start date, and therefore there's a questionable end date. You can't have a contract without a start date. So if you leave blanks in contracts, whether it's a purchase agreement, listing contract, a buyer's agency contract, that is the #1 reason that you'll end up with a lawsuit, pro standards, or law.
I think I might even have a better answer.
The real answer
I'm going to
is
stump Don. Communication.
well, yeah.
It's probably the #1 cause of real estate related lawsuits, pro standards, and LARA complaints.
Enough. All right. Last question. Kim Anderson is asking, let's talk about clear cooperation policy and advertising. Thank you, Kim. I thought no one would ever ask. And let's go, I'm just going to pull this up. A couple of quick questions at the very top. Am I permitted to post on my personal Facebook page that I may be getting a listing and to call me now before it's on the MLS? The answer is no, you cannot. According to the National Association of Realtors Clear Cooperation Policy Statement 8.0, it applies to any listing that is or will be available for cooperation. If there is an intent to list the property at some point, agents are not permitted to post marketing or promotional information on any public forum. So,
which again might be confusing because some of the local associations say that, hey, you can market a home as long as you don't actually have the listing, but you risk the potential of losing that listing.
correct.
But NAR association, the higher level association, actually has come out and said, no.
Yeah, if it says,
can't.
if you say coming soon, that is a red flag to NAR. They are going to hunt that one down to determine when or if the property is intended to be listed, because intent in this particular case is the greatest deciding factor. Another question that comes up along this line is how long after a seller signs a listing contract must the agent make it go live on the MLS? This one is really confusing or misunderstood. If you place a sign in the yard, post it on Facebook, send out just listed cards, you do any advertising or promotion at all, according to the NAR Clear Cooperation Policy, you must upload it no later than 1 calendar day after that listing. So here's an example. You get a listing on December 24. According to the NAR policy, you have to list it by no later than the next day, Christmas Day, for example. Now, I know that agents are listing stuff on Friday and not turning them in to make them go live until Monday. That's a violation of the NAR Clear Cooperation Policy. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday, a holiday, Christmas Day, it makes no difference. It's 1 calendar day. Now, if you don't promote the property at all, advertise it in any way, shape, or form, no yard sign, listed cards, and post on Facebook, then you have a different set of rules. Your local association rules apply. On GRAR, for example, it's 3 business days. So you could take that December 24 listing and not list it on the 25th, 26th, or a holiday, which would be in this case probably the 27th. Now you've got Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to get that property listed on the MLS, but you can't advertise it during that period of time whatsoever.
Yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, and again, they never defined business days. I guess they really should have put Monday through Friday in there.
Business days is a little bit confusing, but calendar days is very clear. So,
And then some associations will say 48 hours.
Yeah.
So we got to be careful. You have to understand what your
Can I-
association rules are.
can I ask a question?
No. Next.
I wanted a sweatshirt.
Okay.
I was going to ask if I could have a sweatshirt.
Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe next time.
Don is shaking
No.
his head no.
The
too.
consensus
Hey,
is
thanks for joining.
no.
It was fun. It was fast. We're going to do one more.
Oh, we got one
Wait,
more.
Wait,
we got
wait.
one more.
All right. Let's see what we got.
And then you can ask your question.
I'm not going to ask a
Okay.
question. No, I'm not
I'm
going
not
to.
answering it.
I'm not talking to you now.
Okay. I'm not talking either.
Where did my...
I can't hear you.
Oh, Monique. I negotiated landscape to be finished on a new build that my buyer was purchasing. In the contract, I said if the landscaping is not done by closing day, the sellers would need to place $10,000 in escrow until it was finished by a certain date, or my buyer would get the 10 grand. The lender never said anything about this until we were heading to closing. They said they would not allow it. I never thought to ask the lender if they would allow monies to be escrowed. What are some clauses agents need to ask lenders about placing them in the contract? Well, exactly that. I mean, for example, this language should have probably been reviewed with the lender well ahead, and you might have been able to make some other arrangements, like getting the invoice from a landscaper and the seller's proceeds, money from the seller's proceeds being directed directly to that contractor. So those are great questions when you get them. To give Eric and me and Paul Brooks a call and see if we can walk you through them.
Yeah, another option could be maybe the seller, after you get an actual estimate, maybe the seller's willing to pay that estimate in advance to that landscaping company so that you have a paid credit to that buyer. But who knows what the buyer and seller are able to do financially.
Final question from Connor Pilmer. Where do we get pick up the sweatshirts? We'll make sure we get them to you, Connor, and we'll probably send them through in our office somehow, but we'll make sure we get to everyone their sweatshirts that we said we'd get them. So thanks for joining.
Thank you.
It was a lot of fun, and we'll have to do this again maybe in 6, 7, maybe 8 years. Okay, have a great one. See you next week.